Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22, and I've got a multi-part series, kind of like our multi-part series, short series that we did on truth, honesty, lying, things like that. And that kind of was the precursor to this multi-part series where, not quite spilling tea, just kind of getting you guys amped for 2026, right? So this episode is how I see it, and kind of giving you a brief insight into what I've learned was the what Olean is to me in comparison to the county. So we're in Cattaraugus County. It's a beautiful county, a lot of great townships and stuff. For those of you who don't know, maybe you're an outsider looking in, Olean is the economic hub of Cattaraugus County. And there's a lot of things that you can say about that. We're kind of like the new, and this is what I've said to a lot of people, we are the New York City of our county. But we're not just New York City. We're the New York City that we want as just regular New Yorkers. We want New York City to be, right? And so what I mean by that is, I'm not sure if a lot of you understand this, but like New York City is like the tidal wave. Like if you win New York City, you win the governor's race. You'll win you'll win the Senate seats. You know what I mean? Like that New York City has a lot of clout in the fact that they're just a huge economic powerhouse. And the problem is that they always usually run on like stupid ideas. And so like while they're the economic hub of America and also New York State, because lots of jobs do business there. The problem is they also like run at a deficit. So like when people in Cattaraugus County pay income tax and it goes to the state or goes to the federal government and then it gets distributed out to the state gives a lot of that money to New York City because New York City is running as a whole in an extreme deficit. And then it kind of like just, piecemeals these little grants out to the rest of us. Like we're just, second-class citizens, right? And that's a lot of us in other parts of New York have resented New York City for that very reason. Now, Olean, in comparison to Cattaraugus County, though, Olean is the economic hub, and we are what we want New York City to be, right? We're the big brother city that provides tons of tax base to the county. We're helping subsidize the sheriff's department, right? Like because out of all of what you pay in your county taxes goes towards the county facilitating sheriffs and stuff like that. And for a lot of municipalities in Cattaraugus County, they don't have a police force. They rely on the sheriffs and the state troopers. So we essentially subsidize other places having a police force, and we have our own internal police force. Like for the most part, there's not too many sheriffs and not too many like state troopers, enforcing this jurisdiction. You might get pulled over or something like that by a state trooper or a sheriff or whatever because they're passing through and they see crime, whatever, or they see an infraction. But for the most part, we're not relying on them for our crime, for our street crimes, for our domestic violences, for neighbor disputes, for dogs running at large, whatever. Like we're not relying on the sheriffs and the state troopers for that. You see a lot of their cars passing through. We also have, a court in our area that, so when you're in holding in Little Valley, a lot of times they'll ship them down for court in Olean. They'll ship them to Salamanca for court. They'll have, felony courts hearings are held in Little Valley. So there's like a lot of our area is a big hub for court transactions, so that's why a lot of times you'll see the troopers coming through, you'll see the sheriffs because they're here either delivering prisoners, giving testimony to different things that they've had, hearing cases, whatever else. For the most part, tangent on the law enforcement side of it, but I mean that's for the most part we are paying for that, right? Where like when I pay my state income taxes, it gets subsidized back to New York City so they can help fund their police department, their fire departments, and all these other things. It's like, but and then my property taxes pay for my city. So it's like that's why a lot of us resent New York City. The rest of our county should not resent us in the same way, because we are actually giving back. We are the economic hub, and we're providing like Big Brother to the rest of the county. And usually we try not to let that go to our head. If you've watched any of our common council meetings, so like you got to think that I was a county or a city attorney, or I'm just stumbling over words tonight. I was a city alderman for 5 years. And I've worked for the city for the last 5. And I've been a resident of the city of Olean for just over 20 years now. So it's one of those, like, I've seen it all, and it's one of those, like, when you're on the city council, you see how the county reacts. And I know that, like, talks have gotten a little bit better than since, was it 2 years ago? There was a county legislator shakeup, right? Almost 3 years ago. So that race added a lot of new faces and a lot more, there was a lot more gung-ho to Olean. But since I was on the council, and it may have changed, like I said, it may have changed in recent years, but there was a lot of people from other municipalities that just don't like Olean. Like, we did something terrible to them, right? Oh, it's Olean. They just think that they deserve everything. And it's like, if you look at what the county actually gives us, it's very little. And I don't know if it's that mentality shining through. And then they, like, we could have a whole separate video just on the fact that they placed the county building, instead of placing the county building and holding the county legislature meetings here, they picked Little Valley because it was some like great capital or whatever. It was equidistant to like all the other townships. So it was like the shortest drive for every, it was like the center of, driving or what have you. Right. So it was like, but there's a lot of transactions that happen in Olean, so they moved the county building down here. Well, at least the DSS office, right? Because they always had a health department hub down here, and they always had, DMVs and stuff, right? But then all of a sudden we got their Department of Social Services down here. And then next thing you know, it's just like, we could have a whole video on that. But we are providing a brunt of it, and we get a ton of shit from people, and we get a lot of blowback, like we're some spoiled and like older sibling, that we're the favorite or something. And like, we're the favorite because by a lot of people, and we're the place that people go to. Like, shit, people from Coppersport come here to go grocery shopping. Like, we are just like, we're the place to go in, like, if you're within 75 miles, like 75 miles takes you to Buffalo, and it's like, you've got Jamestown, Olean, like Hornell, like you start naming the places that people go, we're where it's at. I mean, Salamanca being a close second, that's within the county anyways. It just boggles the mind how other municipalities treat Olean. And I as an Olean resident, like, I've been talking about this for years. It's just, we never get any help from the county. Oh, we do. Oh, we have the Olean Airport, which runs at a deficit every year, which I'm a big supporter of the Olean Airport. The problem is that the county has their name on it, and for their name, they were giving us like, $10,000 a year. $20,000 a year. They were giving us a pilot for the taxes, right? And since my tail end of me being on the Common Council to when I got off, I know that they've increased that amount. A lot of it was like legislator Frank Higgins helped out a lot with that. The now former mayor's relationship with the county higher ups, like at the time it was Mike Brisky, because I remember having conversations with these people, and they were like, well, we're going to give you more money this year. We're going to give you more money this year. And then, the changeover where we had like a changing of the guard, and we had a lot more, you had Kelly Andriano and Rick Smith joining Frank Higgins and Steve Teachman, and you know what I mean? So these people are for Olean. And that's not to say that they're not representing Portville and parts of Hinsdale and the few like mailing addresses in Cuba that are in our county. But it's one of those, like, we're starting to see it now, we're starting to see a little bit like, hey man, we're taking down this, like, oh, thank you for taking down 4 houses, but like, you know, you take down a lot more houses with the land bank for, you know, South Dayton and Carlton than you do in Olean, which is, you know, where there's a lot more houses per whatever, you know what I mean? There, you know, we have 6,000 houses. That might be an old number, but not too many houses. There's houses that burn down, right? But and there's not too many houses that are built. But you got to think that the running average 6 years ago was 6,000. Like, is it 59, 80? You know, did 20 houses fall off? So that was so you have this mentality about the city of Olean, and you have this idea about Olean, just negative attitude and a lot of pushback from other county legislators that, and like I said, a lot of this may be changing towards our favor, but there's a lot of that resentment. And over the years, there has been a lot of power plays to take over Olean, where the county would have a stronger influence. And we've kind of fought that off. Linda Witt held a strong ground with that. You know, the most recent former mayor, Bill Aleo, was big because he was a county legislator. He knew the little parlor tricks and the games and the mentality of the county. And, you know, did that hurt us because they didn't want to do a co-op with us? But no, but it's also a power struggle. You have all these people that are at a higher level because guess what? The most powerful political entity there is the individual. Right? It is the people, right? And then it's the local township, and then it's the county, and then it's the state, and then it's the federal government, right? That's how the power, it's supposed to be minimal here at the top, maximum here at the bottom. That's how it is. That's how America was structured, right? And then all of a sudden, you've got all these, well, I'm a state representative and I can bankrupt your city, and you get that attitude, right? Like nobody comes right out and says that quiet part that they all think, and you can tell that they're thinking it when they come around. They start, well, I'm this big superior thing, and it's like, no, you know, you're a federal whatever. Like federal means nothing because it's supposed to be the smallest minuscule amount of power that there is. Like you should have zero change in my life at the federal level, right? Like, and that's how America. Like it's like, hey, this is how it's designed, right? Like that's, and so. But you get that, like, for some, like, we design it one way, but the human mentality is that they want to take over. Like, they just, like, oh, well, you're beneath me. It's like, no, you're not. No. Like, maybe in a hierarchy stance, like, if you're trying to, like, you know, pyramid it, like, yes, but your power runs inverse. Like, so when you get to the top, the point, you might be above. The problem is that that's also where the, like, the least amount of power is, right? So that's, but you do have that mentality where there's a lot of people at the county level that think that, like, I'm higher up in politics. It's like, well, you're representing us at a different level, but, like, you actually have less power. You should have less power. You need to remind people that, keep them in their place. But it's also how the power dynamics have changed over the years, too, where, like, the mayor of a town or a city used to be a really, like, strong position, and used to be able to change laws that, like, state laws couldn't trump and couldn't knock out of place. And you're like, wow, that's, and it's really, it's all been undermined over the years, right? So, like, there's things that we can't do at the city level because the state's already preempted us, and it's like, well, that's the frustrating part, right? Like, they've preempted us, but, like, it's not supposed to be that way. Right? Like you're not allowed to have more power than the local government. Like, but then they do. Like, and there are certain cutouts for that, right? Like, we're not supposed to have, like, you know, local militias, and, you know, we can't run an army and things like that. And I guess I get that, right? Like, I can understand those cutouts. The downside is that they've undermined and eroded, and the states have done this to all the municipalities. So when all of a sudden, like, there's a huge hullabaloo about the, you know, like, hey, there's a mayor's race, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, yeah, Bill's been there for 12 years. He's made more enemies than friends. He lost the last election to Amy Sherburne. Okay, great, switch the mayor up. That's not going to solve any of the problems. The state's screwing things up at the state level, and because they've undermined most of our local power, essentially, like, they're the ones calling the shots. And so the only people that you can really deal with a lot of this bullshit with is the next tier of government up, which it's one of those things. So that's why, like, everyone's like, oh, we changed the mayor up, oh, everything's going to change. It's like, no, because you still have all these overreaching laws that are up above us, and they've got your hands tied, which is depressing. But one thing that, Linda Witt did and Bill did that I'm hoping for the future stays in place is that the county does not, like, that we have a good working relationship with them, but at the same time, they don't think that they can just kind of control us behind the scenes and take power from, because we are a very powerful force. We are the economic hub of our county. We are a phenomenal thing. We are great. And people try to seize that power. They see it, they smell it, they want to get their hands and their claws into it. And that's one thing that I hope that Amy will be aware of moving forward. It's great to have, allies in the county government. It's great to have working relationships with them. But as long as everybody knows their place and understands that Olean is not the county. Olean is within the county. Olean is represented at the county level already. The county does not own Olean. The county does not run Olean. The county, the same way it doesn't run Salamanca or South Dayton or Carlton or Allegheny or Township, Weston Mills, Portville, they're all independent conglomerates, right? They're all just, they're made up of all of us people within town and city lines. And then we are represented here as our local government. And then from there, we send representation to the county. And at no point, like, is the county more powerful than us and says, hey, we're just, we're taking over what you're, nope, that's not it. Sorry, got to be put in your place. Like, that's elephant in the room. You think you can run us? No. And as long as the new mayor is moving forward, going through with that, I don't really have an issue. I don't have an issue. But there are some things, especially, just the mind games of politics. And I know Amy has a lot of experience in different things like business and stuff like that. And just in Olean, right? But like the political games that people play, there are some unique chess moves that people use, and if you're not used to them, next thing you know, you're learning about en passant, and someone just pulls a move that you thought was like a left-handed trick, but it's in the rules, and now all of a sudden you're kind of handcuffed in certain areas. But it's one of those. I wanted this video to be about where Olean stands, what Olean is, how in the past, for at least the last decade that I've been in politics, and before that, because I just, when you get into politics, they tell you talk to county legislators who've been there for 20, 30 years, and they're just like, people who've been in politics for 20 or 30 years, and they tell you, like, hey, this is how it's always been. It's always been this resentment. There's always been this. There's always been that. People think that Olean is trying to run the county. It's like, no, we don't want to run the county, and it's probably going to be a power struggle to a degree because, the county needs us because we're their economic hub. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, but we're also within the county borders. So, we need the county as much as they need us. And it's one of those, but we need to have distinct lines. We can't blur them because then we're just one government. And I'm a little government guy. So, but sometimes I get stuck on these rabbit holes of the minutiae the minutia, the small details. So with that said, guys, I'm going to end this video. Stay tuned for the next video in this, let's call it a series. In this series, we are going to see you on the next one.